What if the love of your life is someone you've walked past 100 times, but never noticed because your eyes were always on a screen? What if the love of your life is someone you've walked past 100 times, but never noticed because your eyes were always on a screen? I never thought deleting a single app could change my life. But it started there, with my finger hovering over the glowing red icon of InstaTalk, the app where I had spent countless hours scrolling, liking and posting a version of myself I barely recognized. My name is Lina, and until that night, my world was just digital. I lived through filters, followers, and fleeting validation. I told myself I was happy, yet every night, the silence of my apartment felt heavier. Then came the day I saw a photo of myself online, not one I posted, but one a stranger took. I looked empty, tired, like a ghost in a world of smiles and latte art. It broke something inside me. I deleted every app. No goodbye post. No I'll be back. I just left. The first morning offline felt unreal. The world was louder. Birds were chirping outside my window, and I could actually hear them. My coffee tasted different, not better or worse, just real. I wandered into a little neighborhood cafe, one I had passed hundreds of times but never entered because it didn't have good lighting for selfies. It smelled like warm bread and cinnamon. People were talking, actually talking to each other. And that's when I first saw him. He sat by the window, sketching in a worn notebook, completely oblivious to the world. He wasn't scrolling. He wasn't posing. He was just living. I didn't know it yet, but that quiet stranger would change everything. The bell above the CAF door jingled softly as a gust of cool morning air followed me in. I hugged my journal to my chest, unsure why I even brought it. I hadn't handwritten anything in years. My thoughts always went into tweets, captions, and chat boxes. I glanced around, scanning for a quiet corner. And there he was again, still by the window. His hand moved across the paper in steady strokes, his brow slightly furrowed in focus. His coffee sat forgotten, steam rising in slow swirls. I couldn't help staring for a moment longer than I should have. He looked different. Not different like the guys online, who angled their faces just right or flexed their arms in gem selfies. This was a kind of quiet difference. A life unbothered by likes or comments. I sat a few tables away, my journal open, pen hovering. Write something, Lina, I scolded myself. Anything, but all I could think about was the sound of the pencil scratching against his paper. It felt more alive than my own mind. Then, suddenly, he looked up. Our eyes met. It was the briefest flicker of connection. A heartbeat stretched into forever. I froze, my pen still in midair. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away immediately either. He just acknowledged me and then returned to his sketch. For some reason, my chest felt warm. The next few days became a quiet rhythm. Mornings at the CAF, me scribbling in my journal, him sketching by the window. We never spoke. Not a word. But I began to notice things, tiny details. He always ordered a black coffee, never sugar. He tapped the end of his pencil on the table when he was thinking. And sometimes, when the sunlight hit his sketchbook just right, I could see his drawings, trees, streets, and sometimes people. On the third morning, I saw something that made me stop breathing for a second. It was me, or rather, a sketch of me, head tilted slightly down, hair falling to one side, pen in hand. He had drawn me without asking, without knowing my name. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I should feel flattered or invaded, But there was nothing creepy in the drawing. It was gentle, almost reverent, like he was capturing a moment he didn't want to lose. I wanted to say something, to break this invisible wall between us, but my tongue felt tied, and instead, I wrote in my journal, maybe some connections don't need words yet. That evening, I walked home through streets that suddenly felt new. Offline life was slower, but in a way that made me breathe deeper. I noticed things I had never noticed before: the bakery's golden light, the way leaves swayed in the wind, the distant sound of someone laughing, and somewhere between the CAF and my apartment, I realized I was looking forward to tomorrow, because tomorrow I might see him again. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. My alarm hadn't even gone off, yet my eyes opened to soft golden light spilling through my curtains. For the first time in months, I felt eager to start the day. I showered, picked a simple sweater, and for once didn't even glance at my phone. I had no notifications, no comments, no messages, and it didn't feel empty anymore. I grabbed my journal and stepped into the crisp morning air. The city felt different when you weren't rushing somewhere or lost in a screen. I noticed a man walking his dog, a little kid trying to balance on the edge of the sidewalk, the smell of fresh bread wafting from the bakery. By the time I reached the CAF, I was smiling without even realizing it, and then I froze. He wasn't there. The window seat was empty, just a circle of sunlight warming the wooden table. My chest sank with a disappointment that felt ridiculous. Why did I even care? I didn't know him. We hadn't spoken. He was just a stranger with a sketchbook. I ordered my latte and sat at my usual spot, flipping open my journal. The blank page stared back at me, daring me to write something. Then, the bell over the door chimed. I didn't need to look up. Somehow, I already knew. He walked in, the quiet stranger with the sketchbook. But this time, something was different. He wasn't alone. A little dog trotted beside him, a fluffy brown thing with ears that bounced as it walked. My lips twitched into a smile I couldn't suppress. He noticed me. His eyes flicked over, and for the first time, a faint smile carved his lips. I felt my heart stumble. He sat by the window again, dog curling up at his feet. He opened his sketchbook, then hesitated. For a long moment, he stared at the page, then at me, and before I could second-guess myself, I heard my own voice break the silence between us. Your dog is cute. He blinked, as if startled to hear me speak. Then he nodded. Thanks. His name's Bean. Bean. The name fit perfectly. He looks like a bean, I said, my voice softer now. He chuckled, a quiet, low sound, and then, almost reluctantly, he closed his sketchbook. I've seen you here before, he said. Yeah, I replied, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I like writing here. It's peaceful, he nodded. I like sketching here. Less distractions, I guess. I hesitated before asking, do you draw people often? His eyes flicked to mine for a moment too long. I already knew the answer. Sometimes, he said, when they look like they're somewhere else, like their mind's telling a story. I swallowed. Was that his way of saying he'd drawn me? Well, I murmured, pretending to focus on my coffee. I hope my story was interesting enough to sketch. He smiled again, and for the first time, it felt like sunlight breaking through a cloud. My name's Ethan, he said. Lina, I replied, and just like that, the first words were spoken. The next hour passed differently than All the days before, it wasn't just silent glances anymore. We talked about Bean, about the CAF, about how the city felt quieter than it used to. I didn't ask about social media. I didn't need to. Something about him told me he wasn't living there anymore either. When I left that morning, I felt lighter, because now, he wasn't just a boy by the window, he was Ethan, and I wanted to know more. After that first conversation, the CAF no longer felt like just a background to my morning start. It felt alive. Every day after that, Ethan and I exchanged small words that slowly grew into conversations. He always came with Bean, who had quickly decided I was worthy of tail wags and soft little licks on my fingers. Sometimes I caught myself laughing real, unfiltered laughter when Bean did something silly. It was the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from myself in ages, the kind that didn't need to be recorded or posted or performed. One morning it rained. Not a soft drizzle, but a downpour that painted the CAF windows in streaks of silver. The usual cozy background chatter seemed quieter, replaced by the rhythmic drumming of rain. Ethan sat across from me this time, Bean asleep at our feet. He flipped through his sketchbook, showing me little glimpses of his world: trees, buildings, people in motion. "You're really good," I said, turning a page to see a drawing of the park across the street. He shrugged. "I just notice things I didn't used to. I was always on my phone. I'd sit on a bench and miss the entire sunset because I was scrolling through other people's pictures of sunsets." I laughed softly. "Yeah, I know the feeling." We shared a quiet look, one that said more than our words. Two strangers who had abandoned the noise, meeting in the silence. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered. The CAF went dark for a split second before the emergency lights hummed to life. A few people gasped. Ethan glanced outside. "Looks like the storm hit harder than we thought." The barista came around apologizing that the Wi-Fi had gone down along with half the power. People groaned, fumbling with their phones, frustrated that they couldn't refresh their feeds or post stormy window selfies. I looked at Ethan. He looked at me. And then we just laughed. "This is the best part," he said, leaning back in his chair. "No distractions. Just rain, coffee, and..." He gestured vaguely between us. "Real life." I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with my latte. For the next half hour, we talked like old friends. We shared little pieces of ourselves, the kind you don't put online. He told me he used to be a graphic designer for a marketing firm but quit after realizing he spent more time creating ads than creating art. I told him about the day I deleted my apps and how terrifying it was at first, but also freeing. When the lights finally flickered back to life, people cheered. Phones lit up again, faces bent back into screens. But for us, nothing changed. The world outside our little bubble could turn on and off, and I realized I didn't care. That evening, as I walked home under the soft drizzle, I saw the city in a different light. The reflections on wet streets shimmered like a painting, and the air felt fresher than ever. I thought about Ethan's quiet smile, the way Ben snored under the table, and the way we'd laughed when the lights went out. It wasn't love yet, but it was something, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The next Saturday, I decided to change my routine. Instead of heading to the CAF first thing in the morning, I took a long walk through the park nearby. The air was cool and sharp, carrying that earthy smell after a night of light rain. I watched children chasing pigeons, an old man feeding ducks, and a woman jogging with music leaking from her headphones. I wondered if Ethan was sketching here too. I wasn't sure why I hoped for it, maybe because lately, seeing him had become my favorite part of the day. I crossed a small bridge over the pond, and that's when I saw him. He was sitting on a bench with bean curled against his leg, sketchbook open on his lap. His head was tilted slightly down, brow furrowed in focus, as he shaded the delicate curve of a tree branch. I froze for a second, debating whether to call out to him or just observe. Bean solved the problem for me. The little dog perked up, spotted me, and immediately scrambled off the bench with an enthusiastic bark, trotting toward me with a wagging tail. I knelt down, laughing, and scratched behind his ears. "Hey, Bean, you're going to blow our cover." Ethan looked up then, startled at first, before his face softened into a familiar smile. "Lina," he said, closing his sketchbook slightly. "Didn't expect to see you here. Guess Bean invited me," I teased, nodding to the little traitor happily rolling onto his back for belly rubs. Ethan chuckled, patting the bench beside him. "Want to sit?" I hesitated only for a moment before taking the seat. The wood was cool beneath me, and for a second, I felt aware of how close we were. "What are you drawing today?" I asked, leaning slightly to peek at his sketchbook. "The bridge," he said, flipping it so I could see. "And maybe the people who cross it." His pencil strokes were soft but alive, capturing the world in a way a photo never could. "It's beautiful," I murmured. "You see things differently than most people." "Maybe," he said quietly. Or maybe I just started paying attention again after I deleted everything. I turned my head toward him. "You too?" "Yeah," he said, eyes on the pond. "I used to scroll for hours, compare myself to everyone. I thought posting my drawings online would make me feel something. Validated, maybe. But I just felt invisible." I nodded slowly. "I know that feeling." There was a quiet understanding between us, like two old wounds recognizing each other. Then, Bean decided to cause chaos. He leapt up, barking, at a passing duck that had waddled onto the path. His tiny legs were moving fast, but the duck hissed and flapped its wings in retaliation. "Bean." Ethan jumped up immediately. I followed, heart racing, as Bean bolted toward the edge of the pond. Ethan reached him just in time, scooping him up before he could tumble into the water. We both froze, adrenaline buzzing in our chests, and then started laughing. That unrestrained, belly-deep kind of laugh that only comes after a near disaster. "I swear, he's going to give me a heart attack one day," Ethan said, holding Bean securely. "Or at least teach you to sprint," I teased, brushing a wet leaf off my sweater. Our eyes met then, and for a moment, the world went still. I felt it, a warmth spreading in my chest, soft but certain. A pull I couldn't ignore. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but instead, he just smiled, and I realized offline life had given me something I hadn't felt in years, a real connection. The next few weeks became a quiet rhythm I hadn't known I craved. Mornings at the CAF, afternoons at the park, evening walks with Bean trotting between us like a tiny, furry chaperone. I started to notice things about Ethan that didn't come from the pages of his sketchbook. He hummed softly when he was thinking. He tilted his head when observing something beautiful, like he was trying to memorize it, not just see it. And when he laughed, really laughed, his eyes crinkled at the corners in a way that made my chest feel warm. Offline life had become a safe haven, a space where days felt longer and moments felt heavier in the best way. One afternoon, As the sun dipped low and painted the park in soft gold, we sat side by side on our bench. Bean snored lightly against Ethan's foot. "You know," Ethan said, tapping his pencil against the sketchbook on his lap. "I don't think I've talked to anyone this much in years." I smiled, tucking my knees up slightly on the bench. "Guess we both needed a human reset," he nodded slowly. "Yeah. A reminder that life exists outside a screen." There was a pause. Comfortable, almost tender. Then he flipped his sketchbook around, revealing a page I hadn't seen before. It was me, not just a casual sketch like before. This was detailed. My head was tilted slightly toward the light, hair catching a faint breeze, lips curved in a small, unguarded smile I didn't even know I had made. My breath caught. "Ethan, this is too much," he asked, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. I shook my head, fingers brushing the edge of the page. "It's beautiful. I don't think anyone's ever seen me like this." "Not really." He hesitated, then said softly, "I see you." The words lingered in the air between us, warm and fragile. I looked away, heart stumbling in my chest. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a curated image, a filtered post, or a profile. I just felt seen. That night, I walked home under a sky streaked with fading pink clouds. I didn't check my phone. I didn't crave the validation of strangers. But as I passed a bus stop, I noticed a bright poster plastered to the glass. It was an ad for a new social media platform. On it, in bold letters, it said, "Reconnect with the world. Everyone's here. Are you?" I stopped walking. For a second, the world tilted. Everyone's here, except me. I shook the thought away, walking faster. But a faint unease followed me all the way home. The next morning at the CAF, Ethan noticed. "You're quiet today," he said, sliding my usual latte across the table. "Just thinking," I said, tracing the rim of my cup. "Do you ever wonder what's happening online? Like, what you're missing?" He shrugged. "Sometimes. But then I look around and realize I'm not missing anything." "Not really." I nodded, trying to believe it, because a small part of me wondered, what if my past online life wasn't finished with me yet? The following week began like any other. CAF, coffee, laughter that felt warm and unhurried. But on Thursday morning, everything changed. I had just settled into my usual seat when I noticed Ethan wasn't there yet. I sipped my latte, opened my journal, and let my pen wander across the page. Then, the CAF door opened, and instead of the familiar sound of Bean's little paws, I heard hushed whispers. Two women at the table beside me were huddled over a phone, their voices low but excited. "Oh my God, that's her," one whispered. "Are you sure?" "From the video." "Positive. Look, it's her, same hair, same face." "Wow, she's here." A cold chill ran through me. I didn't have to ask what video they meant. Months ago, back when I lived online, someone had filmed me in the middle of a breakdown. I'd been sitting on a subway platform, tears streaming down my face after an awful day. It had gone viral with captions like "Girl loses it in public, relatable." I thought I'd left that world behind. But now the world had found me. I grabbed my coffee and slipped out before Ethan arrived, heart pounding. I could still hear their whispers behind me, chasing me into the street. I didn't go to the CAF the next day. I didn't answer Ethan's text when he asked if I was okay. I didn't want him to know. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. On Saturday morning, I forced myself to step outside for a walk. The air was cold, and the city felt sharp around the edges. I thought I could escape into the park, disappear into nature for a while. But then I saw him. Ethan was sitting on our bench, being asleep at his feet. His phone was in his hand, something I had never seen before. My stomach twisted. When he noticed me, he stood immediately. Lina, hey, where've you been? I was worried. I hesitated, eyes flicking to his phone. You were on. He followed my gaze, then sighed. I had to check something. A friend sent me a link. I froze. You saw it, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. The humiliation surged like a wave. My chest ached. My hands trembled. So now you know. I'm that girl. The one everyone laughed at online. Lina, no, he reached out. But I stepped back. You don't get it. My voice cracked. I left that life because it chewed me up and spat me out. And now it's here, ruining this too. He looked pained. I don't care about that video. I care about you. That shame was louder than his words. I turned and walked away, heartbreaking in slow, heavy beats. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the glow of my untouched phone on the nightstand. I thought I had escaped that world, but the truth was, the past always leaves footprints, and now I didn't know if Ethan would still want to walk beside me. The next morning, I didn't go to the CAF, or the park, or anywhere at all. I sat in my apartment with the curtains drawn, wrapped in a blanket, Bean's absence making the room feel even lonelier. My coffee went cold on the table as the words from those whispering women echoed in my head. Oh my God, that's her. From the video. Even though I deleted all my apps, I could still feel the stares, the silent judgment of millions of strangers who had once turned my private pain into their entertainment. And now, Ethan knew. The thought twisted inside me like a knife. By the third day, there was a knock on my door. I hesitated, heart racing, and then I heard it, a faint, familiar bark. Lina. Ethan's voice came through the door, soft but steady. I know you're in there. Can we talk? I didn't move. My breath hitched. A few seconds of silence passed. Then he spoke again. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here because of that video. I'm here because I miss you. The dam cracked. My chest ached with the weight of everything I'd been holding back. Slowly, I opened the door. Bean bolted inside first, wagging his tail like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Ethan stood there, damp from the cold air, his sketchbook tucked under one arm. We stared at each other for a moment that felt heavier than words. Then I whispered, I didn't want you to see me like that. I already saw you, he said gently. The real you. That video. It's not you. It's a moment. A bad one. But not you. Tears stabbed my eyes. But it's how the world sees me. Then forget the world, he said, stepping closer. His voice was low, steady. I left that world too. The only thing I care about is here. You, us, real life. His words broke something open in me. I sank to the floor, Bean climbing into my lap, and finally let the tears come. Ethan crouched beside me, his hand brushing mine, not pushing, just there. After a long moment, I asked, my voice trembling, why don't you hate me for hiding this? Because everyone's hiding something, he said. And maybe we're both just trying to find the parts of ourselves that don't need to hide anymore. I looked at him through my tears and, for the first time in days, felt a fragile spark of warmth. That evening, we sat on my living room floor with takeout boxes scattered around us. Bean slept with his head on my leg. Ethan pulled out his sketchbook and flipped to a fresh page. I want to draw this moment, he said quietly. Me crying on the floor? I sniffled. He smiled faintly. No, you. Healing. I didn't know if I believed in healing yet, but for the first time since my past had come crashing back, I felt like maybe I could, because Ethan wasn't leaving. The next morning, sunlight filtered through my curtains for the first time in days. I didn't pull the blanket over my head. I didn't hide. Ethan had stayed until late last night, talking, sketching, and filling the silence with warmth I didn't know I needed. Before he left, he said something that stuck with me. You can't erase the past, Lina, but you can choose how to live with it. I spent hours thinking about that after he left. By the time the sun rose, I knew I couldn't live in fear anymore. I put on a simple dress and walked to the CAF, my heart hammered with every step, but I kept going. A part of me was terrified that someone would point, whisper, or pull out a phone. But another part of me was done running. When I pushed open the CAF door, the bell jingled, and the warm smell of coffee and baked bread wrapped around me like an old friend. Ethan was there. His face lit up the second he saw me. Hey, he said softly, like the word itself was a hug. I sat across from him. Hey, we didn't need to say much more. He didn't treat me differently. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just handed me my usual latte, and we drank in the familiar quiet. For the first time, I felt like I belonged in my own skin again. A week later, we went for a walk in the park. Bean darted ahead, chasing a butterfly, while we strolled by the pond where we'd first shared that near disaster with the duck. Ethan nudged me gently. You know, the internet is going to keep existing, whether we like it or not. But it doesn't get to own you. I exhaled slowly. I know. I've been thinking. Maybe I need to face it on my terms. He tilted his head. What do you mean? I hesitated, then smiled faintly. I want to make a post. Just one. Not to hide, not to explain, just to exist as me, without shame. Ethan's eyes softened. Then do it. I'll be here when you do. That evening, back in my apartment, I reinstalled one app, just one. I didn't scroll. I didn't search my name. I just opened the camera, sat by the window where the fading light kissed my face, and took a simple photo. No filters, no makeup, no pretending. The caption was just 3 words. I'm still here. I hit post. My hands trembled, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel like the world had power over me. I closed the app and turned off my phone. Then I walked to the CAF where Ethan and Ben were waiting, and felt something in me settle. Weeks passed and whispers faded. The world had moved on, as it always does. But Ethan and we stayed. Offline life wasn't just an escape anymore. It was a choice. It was home. It was us. Months passed, and our lives settled into a rhythm that felt almost like a dream. Morning coffees at the CAF. Evening walks through the park. Bean's happy bark echoing through quiet streets. The world kept moving, but I felt like, for the first time, I had truly stepped into it fully present. No filters, no constant need for validation. One evening, Ethan and I walked along the riverbank as the city lights shimmered across the water. Bean trotted ahead, chasing shadows. It's funny, I said, my voice soft against the hum of the city. I used to think my life only mattered if people were watching. If I didn't post it, it felt like it didn't exist. Ethan looked at me, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of streetlights. And now, I exhaled, smiling faintly. It matters because I'm living it, even if no one else sees. He nodded, and for a while, We walked in comfortable silence, the river breeze tugging gently at our clothes. Then he stopped and turned to me. "Lina," he said, voice steady but warm. "I used to think I'd spend my whole life sketching strangers, watching from the outside. But meeting you, it feels like I finally stepped into the picture." My heart skipped. He reached into his bag and pulled out his sketchbook. Flipping to the last page. It was a drawing of us, not in the CAF, not in the park, just us, standing side by side, hands almost touching, looking at a world bigger than ourselves. The kind of image that felt like a memory and a promise all at once. "Ethan," my voice trembled. "It's perfect." He hesitated for a heartbeat, then said quietly, "I think I'm in love with you." The world seemed to still around me, the river, the city, the distant sound of traffic all fading into the background. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes, and whispered, "Good. Because I think I'm in love with you too." He laughed softly, almost in disbelief, and then he kissed me. It wasn't dramatic or staged for anyone to see. It was quiet, real, ours. In the months that followed, our lives didn't become extraordinary in the way social media chases. We didn't go viral, we didn't trend, and we didn't need to. We lived coffee dates, park walks, late night talks under city lights, and somewhere along the way, I realized the love I was searching for was never in likes, shares, or comments. It was here, in the offline world, in the heart of a boy who saw me when no one else truly did. Our hearts found each other when we finally looked up from the screens. And they've been offline together ever since. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment love so that we could understand you were with us till the end. Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button. Comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.